Welcome back, my Detroit Den family. This is Steve. I got another Detroit Lions episode for you. If you guys like Detroit Lions football, that's why you clicked on this episode. You want to see what's going on. Listen, we are less than a month away from training camp starting. That is, for me, the official start time of the NFL season. I know some people say it starts around free agency or the draft or the NFL calendar resets. But for me, it's when the players are competing on the field. We're fighting for jobs. We're popping some pads. That's when football season starts for me. So rookies report on July 20th, veterans on July 23rd. We are getting there. I know there's not a whole lot going on in the Detroit Lions universe right now outside of signing Jake Bates last week. It's been pretty quiet on the home front. So what I'm going to talk about today is some players who I think are going to break out in this 2024 season. And there's a lot of names you could throw out there. Okay. I'm not going to say that I won't do another episode like this because there's a list of guys. I narrowed it down to 2 with an honorable mention. I got an offensive player, I got a defensive player, and I got my honorable mention. I can't say that I won't do this again because I like talking about these kids, these young players who I think are going to break out. What a breakout player to me is someone who's going to exceed expectations. So it's easy to throw out like a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Sam Laporta. They're not going to break out. They already had their breakout season. It's hard. It's going to be hard for them to duplicate. I think they can get better, but a breakout for me is when you put the NFL on notice. Nobody was talking about you, and now you're the talk of the town. So I'm looking at a player. I'll start with my offensive guy first and foremost, hometown kid, Donovan Peoples-Jones, University of Michigan. Look, this kid was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, went to Michigan. If you know Michigan football, if you're familiar with college football, or if you're purely just a Detroit Lions fan, that's all fine. Michigan football is very, very, very run heavy. You know this. And real quick, just a quick disclaimer. If anyone wants to say that I'm picking Donovan Peoples-Jones because I'm a known Michigan fan, if you truly know me, you know my motto is once the game is over, the rivalry's dead for a year. I want the best players on the Detroit Lions. I'll tell you that one of my favorite players in the NFL is Nick Bosa. I think that guy's an absolute monster. Went to Ohio State. I don't let that college stuff cloud my mind when it comes to Detroit Lions and who can help this Detroit Lions team win. I'm looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones, former 5-star recruit, wasn't showcased a lot in the passing game. Now he's very versatile. We saw him when he was wearing the maize and blue. He did some kick returns, some punt returns, some wide receiver, 6'2", 200 pounds. Like this kid's got a good athletic frame on him. Like I said, didn't really get to showcase his skills. I think if he were in an offense in college that were more pass heavy, I think he would have been drafted a lot earlier than the 6th round. His best year as a pro was just 2 seasons ago. So it's not like he's far removed from being very productive. 2022 with Cleveland, he had 61 catches for 840 yards. I'll round up 1 yard, 3 touchdowns. He's never going to be like a 14 or 12 to 1400 yard receiver with 8 to 9 touchdowns. He's not going to be that type of guy. He could be a big body receiver with good enough speed to expand the field, kind of like a Jameson Williams on the other side. Like he can get open. He can win some contested catches. He's a tough matchup for a smaller corner. I think he could pose a lot of problems for some defenses. In Detroit, he doesn't have to be the guy. He has to be a guy. What's he going to be on our offense when it comes to weapons? He's going to be like realistically, like maybe the 3rd, 4th option behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, our running backs. I'd like to see Jameson Williams get the football more. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to have a nice season. Here's what I consider a nice season. I'm going to compare him to Josh Reynolds, who for us last year had just 40 catches, 608 yards, and 5 touchdowns. If Donovan Peoples-Jones can maybe do a little bit more than that, I will say that's a very, very, very good season. And real quick on Josh Reynolds, man, listen, I know I hammered him for that NFC Championship game. It was a bad time to have a bad moment. There was a lot of people who could say that. We could say that about Jahmyr Gibbs, Kendall Vildor, Cam Sutton, pretty much everyone but Jared Goff. Like we missed some tackles. We turned the ball over. We didn't execute. Josh Reynolds was just kind of the scapegoat, I feel like, in that NFC Championship game. I mean, pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was a bad moment, a bad time for a lot of people to have their worst moment of the season. we didn't have to talk about Josh Reynolds a whole lot last year until that NFC Championship game. Like, he played very well. If we don't have to talk about you, you're obviously playing well. I say the same thing about Cam Sutton. We didn't have to mention his name until like week 14. And this isn't a Josh Reynolds or a Cam Sutton episode. I'm just comparing Josh Reynolds and Donovan Peoples-Jones. If DPJ can get a little bit more production than what we got out of Josh Reynolds last year, I call it a win, man. We've talked about it on this channel. Not wanting to see our offense get too stale because we didn't really make a whole lot of offensive changes outside of really adding Kevin Zeitler to our offensive line. We're really pretty much locked in for who's going to be on our offense. I mean, I don't have to go through the roster. You guys know who's going to be the starters. You know who the big dogs are. We didn't make a lot of changes. The only changes I can see really happening are Donovan Peoples-Jones and Jameson Williams getting the football more, and that could be a good problem to have. I will say that Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be, I think he's going to be a better red zone option as well. We kind of talked about some offensive struggles when we got into the red zone. I think he's good enough to catch some contested jump balls. Like I said, on some smaller cornerbacks, I think he's going to be able to, I don't want to say manhandle them, but I think he can out physical a lot of corners that don't step up in size compared to DPJ. 6'2", 200 pounds. He's not overly big. He's big enough. Listen, my honorable mention for offense, I was going to save this for the end of the show, but I already mentioned his name was Jameson Williams. I think Jameson Williams also is going to have a great season, but it's easy for a lot of people to jump on that bandwagon because we know how explosive he is. Like, a lot of people are talking about Jameson Williams. I wanted to talk about some guys who I think are flying under the radar. I'll throw Jameson Williams and Khalif Raymond in that mix. But I do think that DPJ is just going to be a very, very key piece to this offense, not letting it get stale. Taking the Josh Reynolds production and going up to that next level, I think is going to be huge for this Detroit Lions team. Now, my defensive player, this is where I think it's not really a hot take. I think James Houston's going to have a bounce back season. Listen, I've been critical of James Houston in the past. I've said that I wanted to see it again. What he did in his rookie season in 2022, where he only played in 7 games and he had 8 sacks, it was phenomenal, man. He was he was getting talked about on ESPN. A kid from pretty much the depths of hell coming onto this roster and producing, like, blowing up against Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. Like, he had a phenomenal second half of his rookie season. 8 sacks, 7 games played, 1 forced fumble too. And then last year, I think he was kind of like the most talked about person on every podcast, every single Detroit Lions outlet, whatever you want to call them. Everyone was talking about James Houston at the beginning of last year. Like, James Houston's going to have 15 sacks. James Houston's going to have 17 sacks. Like, he's going to be a game wrecker. And I said, man, I hope I'm wrong, because I think he's got a really great pass rush. But I mean, 15 to 17 sacks, that's like Von Miller level. I don't know if I saw that kind of talent out of him, but I truly, truly pray to the Lions football gods that I'm wrong. And that's the James Houston that we have on this team. I'll say this about James Houston. I have been critical. He's not good in pass coverage. He's what I would call a liability. But I will say this. When it's 3rd and 13 and the other team has the ball and you know that they're passing it, James Houston's the guy I want on the field. I operate under the motto of, you can know what's coming and you still got to stop it. You can know that a James Houston pass rush is coming. You still got to stop it. Now, what he does very well is he's got great speed, especially from that same linebacker position, maybe a little stand-up defensive end. He's got to learn some more pass rush moves. He's really just dependent on speed. Let's see a bull rush. Let's see a spin move, a spin. Do something other than just pure speed. I think if he can really hone in on his craft and really master it, I think James Houston could be an excellent pass rusher. I mean, I'm just living in a world where DJ Reader, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Marcus Davenport, and James Houston are all rushing the passer on 3rd and 13. Like, good luck. I don't know how you're going to be able to get the ball off if you're a quarterback that fast, because you're really only going to have about 2 seconds, because DJ Reader's taking up 2 blocks. Aleem McNeil's a man on a mission contract here. You know what you're getting in 97, Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, former first-round pick, James Houston. They call him the problem for a reason. Man, I feel like he could really be like the biggest X factor on this defense. Our secondary, completely brand new pretty much for the most part, other than our safeties. Our corners, nickels, they're all brand new, depending on what happens with Brian Branch officially. A lot of speculation that he's going to play full-time safety, and I like that move, but we just don't 100% know yet. James Houston, don't let this guy come into town and get. And I'd be happy with 10 sacks. Honestly, I would honestly say that if James Houston at the end of 2024, 2025 season, if he has 10 sacks on his stat sheet, Detroit Lions are probably going to the Super Bowl. Call me crazy. We might even be winning the Super Bowl. Like, call me nuts. Call me nuts on a nice Saturday night that I might be wrong about that, because an elite pass rush, I don't care who you got back there. You could have me back there playing corner. It ain't going to matter because the quarterback's on his ass every play. I don't have to cover for long. We got guys like Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Ife Melifanu. Like, the list goes on. If you put an elite pass rush on this team too, thoughts and prayers. Guys, leave it in the comments. Let me know who your breakout players are for 2024, 2025. Hit that like button. Stick around. Subscribe. I will be back later with another show, guys.